Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
Tom Bower just dropped a jaw-dropping bombshell that flips everything people thought they knew about Harry and Meghan's marriage. According to the longtime royal biographer, there's a hidden clause buried deep inside their prenuptial agreement. Page 14, Clause 7. And here's the wild part. Harry allegedly signed it without realizing what it truly meant.
I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Once you hear what that clause says, suddenly a lot of recent moves start to look very different. Meghan bringing back the lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard-style business moves in January 2026. Her quiet financial decisions going all the way back to 2022. It suddenly starts lining up in a way that raises serious eyebrows. Bower claims this mysterious clause could shift the balance completely. If his reporting is right, Harry may not be holding nearly as much control as people assumed. In fact, insiders whisper that the deal might leave him with very little leverage if things ever turned complicated.
A man who she abandoned for months to the media and now presents her mother, Doria, speaking for the first time, telling outright lies about her ex-husband. I mean, this was a calculated attempt against the family.
And when you connect that possibility with Meghan's recent business activity, the timing begins to look less random and more like a carefully planned strategy. But before anyone jumps straight to the clause itself, you need to understand why Tom Bower is one of the few people who could uncover something this sensitive. He's not some internet rumor hunter typing wild guesses late at night.
And so he became hypersensitive and blamed the media for the crashes of his relationships, never thinking that they could have something to do with himself. So he's a very complicated, depressed, unintelligent man who is seeking a role and has got really nobody on whom he could rely, which is in the end where Meghan stepped in. I mean, a needy man met a woman who could help him with his needs.
Not even close. Tom Bower is a former barrister and a seasoned BBC investigative journalist with more than 40 years of relentless digging behind him. This is someone who built a reputation exposing powerful figures who believed their secrets were locked away forever. Over the years, Bower has investigated some of the most influential names in business and media. He revealed shocking details about Robert Maxwell, the controversial media tycoon whose empire once shook the entire industry. He also investigated Mohammed Al-Fayed's business dealings, pulling back the curtain on how power and money really moved behind the scenes. And he didn't stop there. Bower even examined Simon Cowell's entertainment empire, exposing how influence operates in the world of global television. So when Tom Bower publishes something explosive, publishers prepare carefully. Legal teams comb through every line because his reporting is known for being heavily researched and strongly documented. That same intense scrutiny is exactly what surrounded his headline-grabbing book, Revenge, the project that pushed his investigation into Harry and Meghan straight into the global spotlight. Tom Bower went deep with this investigation, speaking to more than 80 people who had real connections to Meghan's world.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income.
We're talking palace insiders, Hollywood contacts, and even legal professionals who worked on her contracts. That's not random chatter from the internet. That's direct insight from people who actually saw how things operated behind closed doors. So when Bower talks, people tend to pay attention because his reporting has a reputation for shaking the royal walls. If you're following this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, because the next part of this situation gets seriously intense. Tom Bower doesn't rely on whispers or messy online gossip. He approaches every story the way a courtroom lawyer builds a case, piece by piece, evidence by evidence, everything carefully stacked together until the full picture becomes impossible to ignore. So when Bower says he's seen indications of unusual prenup clauses, he's not throwing out random guesses. According to his reporting, he spoke with legal professionals who understand how high-profile marriage agreements are structured.
Breaking right now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle spent the week using the With Love Meghan promotional campaign to try and suggest that everything is rosy in their very, very rocky marriage. Not so fast, says Radar Online, which has revealed that the Sussex couple are now sleeping in separate beds. Let me take you through this bomb.
These are the kinds of insiders who know exactly what gets written into those contracts and why certain clauses end up buried deep inside the paperwork. Bauer even explored how California legal rules can collide with long-standing royal traditions from Britain. And the detail he points to on page 14. That's the part some people believe could explain Meghan's decision to reconnect with Sunshine Sachs, the powerful PR firm known for stepping in during major public controversies. Now, normally, prenups are pretty straightforward. They outline what each person owned before the marriage, how shared assets might be divided if the relationship ends, and whether financial support could be involved. Sometimes they also include timelines or conditions meant to protect both sides and keep things fair.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's marriage is said to be under major strain as backlash has gotten under the Duchess's skin so much that she's sleeping apart from her husband and wondering whether or not she would be more popular on her own, Radar Online can reveal. Amid ongoing rumours about the Sussex's marriage being on the rocks, insiders told us Markle is cracking under the pressure of public scrutiny as she tries to claw her way back into Hollywood and launch her lifestyle brand, leaving her marriage to Harry hanging by a thread. Insiders told us Markle is starting to unravel and wonder if she would be better off as a solo act. Meghan is said to have even started to look up divorce lawyers. Sources claimed Harry was confronted by his unhappy wife.
Well, you know, Piers, you're the first person to say how limited Prince Harry is, unfortunately, and how his wife trades off her husband's fame and fortune, or not so great fortune now. I mean, this is the problem, but we're still interested because, after all, he's a great character in our modern day.
But royal prenups operate on a completely different level. These agreements are often designed to protect royal property, family estates, and assets that are meant to pass down through generations. They can also set clear boundaries on how royal titles are used if a separation ever happens. In some cases, they even address how public appearances and media interactions are handled after a split. Take the agreement between Charles and Diana as an example. That arrangement wasn't only about finances. It also spelled out specific rules about how Diana could continue using her royal title once their marriage officially ended. Now it's starting to look like Harry and Meghan's own agreement may carry even stricter conditions than most people ever imagined. The kind of restrictions that could flip the entire situation upside down if things ever got complicated. Their story takes a dramatic turn because of one huge factor: California law. Under California's community property rules, anything earned during a marriage is usually shared equally between both partners.
Last week, we brought to you fresh news that Harry had been staying at the San Vicente bungalows to take a break from his family, despite owning a sprawling Montecito property together with Guesthouse. And this week, those rumours are intensifying.
That means major deals signed after the wedding could legally belong to both sides. We're talking about massive contracts like the Netflix partnership, the Spotify deal they once had, and even certain financial benefits Harry received after the marriage. On paper, that kind of income would normally be split right down the middle. But according to what Tom Bauer says he uncovered, their prenup reportedly contains a special clause designed to deal with that exact legal clash. And this is where things suddenly get very interesting. The wording doesn't just say something simple like split the earnings 50-50. Not even close. Bauer claims the clause dives much deeper, focusing on something called intellectual property rights. That means the real ownership of the stories, projects, and content connected to their public brand. We're talking about the Sussex brand itself.
Very aggressive PR for the Sussexes, got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it, or even letting anyone know about it.
Their joint media productions, and even projects tied to Harry's memoir, Spare. According to Bauer's interpretation, all of that could fall under the same powerful legal language. And here's the detail that raised the most eyebrows. The structure of those deals reportedly places Meghan in the role of business manager for many of their joint ventures. She's been closely involved in negotiating partnerships, managing contracts, and guiding how those projects move forward in the media world. When that kind of role is combined with California property laws and very specific contract wording, Some analysts believe it could influence how profits from those projects are controlled. But the biggest twist in Bauer's reporting shocked many observers. According to the sources he spoke with, that key clause may not have been part of the original 2018 agreement at all.
Has the fairy tale Prince Harry and Meghan Markle embarked on in 2016 become an absolute nightmare for them? Despite marrying in St. George's Chapel in Windsor, it seems like life hasn't been so rosy for the couple. They have gone through endless challenges, the vast majority of which are all self-inflicted. And this weekend, we had some new news that seems to kind of reiterate the idea that Meghan Markle, she wants to go back to the past. She wants to relive her glory days because she has hired Sunshine Sachs as her new PR representatives who are representing her back in 2016. And at the same time, Harry is in the UK fighting for a court case that really has no bearing on any of this, but we have heard endlessly that he wants to reestablish himself.
Insiders claim the language was added later as an amendment after the wedding, and the story circulating among those sources says Harry signed the updated paperwork trusting the process, without realizing how significant that small section on page 14 might eventually become. Tom Bauer says that one signature could end up being the detail that changes everything. If his reporting is accurate, that small moment of trust on a legal document might shift the entire balance in Meghan's favor, and it could leave Harry facing a reality he never expected. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Prenuptial agreements get updated all the time. Couples often revise them when life changes in big ways. Maybe they welcome children, buy expensive property together, or start building major businesses. When those milestones happen, lawyers often suggest amending the prenup so the agreement matches their new financial reality.
And of course, the news today that Harry's memoir is going to be published in the near future will just alarm the royal family here in England about what he's actually going to say to earn his money.
According to Tom Bauer's investigation, Harry and Meghan made their own update around 2020. And the timing is impossible to ignore. That was the exact period when their lives changed dramatically. They stepped away from royal duties, moved to California, and suddenly began signing major entertainment deals that brought in serious money. From the outside, updating a prenup during such a huge transition would seem like a logical step. But what Bauer claims to have discovered makes that amendment look far more significant. During his research, he reportedly spoke with legal professionals who had knowledge of Meghan's earlier divorce from Trevor Engelson, and the picture they described was very clear. They said Meghan approached legal paperwork with intense focus and precision. According to those sources, she was the kind of person who studied every line of a contract, questioned every piece of wording, and refused to sign anything without fully understanding the details.
Meghan herself.
And Meghan herself.
In the months before she met Harry, was setting up paparazzi pictures in London. She now acts as if the paparazzi are literally the devil incarnate.
She begged the paparazzi to photograph her, and they wouldn't. And when they did, she says, "Oh, I don't want to, I'm hurt." And that ridiculous story about how they first met, the whole thing was a tissue of inaccuracies, to be polite.
Well, because what do you make of that? Because as you know, Harry was always very insistent.
Are they insane? What is happening? There is complete and utter chaos going on. The Meg and Harold are taking their rebrands far too literally at this point. Archewell, their charity effort, has not only changed its name from a foundation to Philanthropies, which is even worse branding, I might add, but there is a whole slew of drama going on behind the scenes.
She also relied on a full legal team to review documents carefully before any agreement was finalized. Those same legal contacts told Bauer that Meghan may have learned an important lesson from that earlier chapter of her life. Always protect your financial independence and long-term earning power. When her marriage to Trevor ended, reports say the separation was relatively clean financially, partly because the legal arrangements had been handled very carefully from the beginning. Now fast forward to 2020, when Harry and Meghan were stepping into a completely new world of global media deals and business ventures. Now look at what was happening during that same period. Meghan and Harry were rapidly building their global brand. In September 2020, they secured that massive Netflix deal that had everyone in the entertainment world talking. Not long after, the Spotify partnership was announced, adding even more momentum to their growing media empire. Big contracts, huge headlines, and serious money suddenly flowing in. And right in the middle of all that activity, the prenup was reportedly amended. According to Tom Bower's reporting, that timing might not be a coincidence at all. He suggests Meghan could have used that exact moment to reinforce her financial security while their business ventures were expanding quickly. If that amendment included new language about ownership or control, it might explain why people are now looking back at that decision with fresh curiosity. Around that same time, their Archewell organization was also taking shape. The foundation operates with both charitable and media-focused branches, and its launch marked another big step in their independent project after stepping away from royal duties.
And what would Diana think of Harry attacking William in that way? She'd be appalled by her son's behavior. And that was, again, so nauseating, the way he kept on bringing in Diana. Diana, who appealed to the media all the time, who phoned journalists secretly, who brought Martin Bashir into her office, who cooperated with Andrew Morton, who kept on calling Richard Kay. I mean, this is ridiculous.
According to Bower, the prenup amendment was finalized right during this intense phase of brand building and new business creation. For some observers, the timing is simply too neat to ignore. Here's where the legal angle gets even more interesting. California law already allows spouses to share ownership of wealth created during a marriage. But Bower's sources suggest the amendment may have gone further than that. They claim certain structures in their ventures place Meghan in a leading management position when it comes to their joint business projects. Public filings connected to Archewell list Meghan in key leadership roles, and her name appears prominently on several pieces of official paperwork connected to their ventures. According to Bower's interpretation of the legal setup, this structure could influence who controls certain aspects of the brand if major decisions ever had to be made. And when Bower reportedly reached back out to legal professionals familiar with Meghan's earlier divorce negotiations, they described her approach to contracts in a very specific way: calm, strategic, and always thinking several moves ahead. People who worked with Meghan in legal situations say she always knew exactly what she wanted, and she made sure her lawyers delivered. When her marriage to Trevor Engelson came to an end, the message to her legal team was reportedly very clear. She wanted a clean exit. No complicated financial ties, no shared assets dragging on for years, no loose ends that could create problems later. The goal was simple but powerful: complete independence once the relationship was over.
Apparently Prince Harry is already talking to divorce lawyers?
So this is kind of interesting. This is the woman that the papers are citing for this reporting is a longtime royal insider, a socialite. She's been right. I've been following her because she's great TV. She's been right about a lot. And she's claiming she's heard from several sources now that he's hired a lawyer, and it happens to be somebody who's a great divorce lawyer and specializes in divorce. And it dovetails on other reports that he is spending a lot of his time in 2 hotels, one of which is in Montecito, another of which is not too far away, as an escape from her. It's entirely plausible. All they've done for 5 years is complain and moan and see themselves as downtrodden victims. That doesn't tend to spur a lot of feelings of love and happiness and close bonding. I mean, I guess in the crisis mode, it might.
According to accounts discussed in Tom Bower's reporting, Meghan approached that process with a very direct mindset. The plan was to walk away with her career intact, her finances organized, and no ongoing complications tying her to the past. Everything structured so that once the chapter closed, she could move forward without looking back. Now, some observers say that same careful thinking may have carried into her marriage with Harry. The strategy, according to Bower's interpretation, was always about keeping things clear and controlled when it came to business and finances. Another interesting detail from Bower's research involves the powerful PR agency Sunshine Sachs. Meghan first connected with the firm in 2017, around the time her relationship with Harry was becoming public, and this wasn't just any publicity team. Sunshine Sachs built a reputation as one of the most influential crisis management firms in the celebrity world. They specialize in handling extremely sensitive situations for high-profile clients, especially moments when public image can shift overnight. The firm has worked with major figures during some of the most closely watched breakups in Hollywood. One well-known example is when Katie Holmes separated from Tom Cruise, a situation where careful media strategy became crucial. So when Bauer discovered Meghan had brought Sunshine Sachs into her circle early on, it caught attention.
Well, I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable. But I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain. Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. And I think as of this week, the signal for her great problem is that she turned up at Kevin Costner's.
To him, it suggested someone who clearly understood the power of shaping a narrative before the media shapes it for you. Then came another twist in 2020. After Meghan and Harry moved to the United States, the couple eventually parted ways with Sunshine Sachs. At the time, public explanations suggested the change was related to restructuring communications and managing costs. But Bauer says some sources described a different motivation. According to those accounts, Meghan wanted to bring more of the messaging and media strategy inside their own organization. Instead of relying on an outside PR firm, the plan was to control the narrative directly through their internal team and communication structure. In short, the goal was simple: manage their story their own way. Now jump ahead to January 2026, and suddenly Meghan brings Sunshine Sachs back into the picture. That decision instantly got people talking. Why return to the same powerhouse PR firm now? According to Tom Bauer, the timing is what really caught attention. Bauer says people who understand high-profile media strategy know something important about situations like this. Major PR firms are often brought in long before any big public developments happen. Not after headlines explode, but months earlier. That early stage is when teams begin shaping public messaging, arranging positive coverage, and preparing for intense media attention that could come later. And Bauer argues that the clues might not only be about the PR firm itself. He says the bigger signals could be found in Meghan's recent business moves. Since around 2022, she has been steadily building new projects under her own direction. One of the most talked about examples is her lifestyle venture, often referred to as ARO, short for American Riviera Orchard. Behind the scenes, Bauer says these moves suggest long-term planning as she develops new ventures and brand opportunities. Another detail that caught attention involves how those projects are structured. Public business filings connected to some of these ventures list Meghan in leading roles.
At that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap and give it gratis. And this year, she is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and there'll be problems with that too.
I mean, we've seen people leaving Invictus recently. Important, I think that's you mentioned the Disney special. Does the Disney special at all?
In several trademark applications, her name appears directly connected to the brand registrations. Observers have also noticed photos and reports of Meghan attending business meetings around Los Angeles on her own while working on these projects. According to Bauer's interpretation, that pattern isn't random. He says it resembles a strategy sometimes used by public figures who want to strengthen their independent professional identity while launching new ventures. To Bauer, the sequence of events follows a familiar pattern. First, build a strong personal brand and business structure that stands firmly on its own. First, create independent income streams that can stand on their own. Then make sure your financial security never depends completely on someone else. That's the pattern Tom Bauer says he has been watching closely. In his view, the signs aren't subtle at all. They form a very clear trail when you look at Meghan's financial and business decisions over the past few years. Bauer argues that the real story may not even sit inside a secret clause in a prenup. Instead, He says the bigger clues appear in Meghan's business activity since around 2022. When you line up the timeline of her projects, filings, and partnerships, Bauer believes a larger strategy begins to take shape. Take the massive Netflix deal that made headlines around the world. Reports often repeated the eye-catching number of $100 million, and that figure grabbed attention everywhere. But according to people familiar with entertainment contracts who spoke to Bauer, those deals rarely work the way the headlines suggest. That number usually represents the maximum possible value if every planned project gets completed and released. It isn't a lump sum that appears instantly in a bank account, and in this case, not every project tied to the agreement reached production. The documentary series was released and drew major global attention. Meghan's lifestyle and cooking-focused content also moved forward, but other planned projects, including the animated series Pearl, were eventually cancelled. Several additional ideas connected to the deal reportedly never moved beyond early development. Because of that, Bauer says the actual earnings from the agreement may have been far lower than the maximum number reported in the media. Sources he cites estimate the couple may have received tens of millions from Netflix before the partnership later shifted into a smaller first-look arrangement. And that's where another interesting shift appears. Around 2022, as some of those projects slowed down, Meghan began filing trademarks connected to her own lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. At the same time, legal teams were reportedly working on new business structures separate from Archewell. To Bauer, those steps suggest careful preparation, building independent companies, separate brand assets, and new ventures designed to stand firmly on their own. Tom Bauer says these moves could point to something bigger than ordinary business planning. In his view, they resemble a strategic financial restructuring. The Montecito home, for example, sits in California, where homestead protections can apply to primary residences.
I would argue their Hollywood misadventure has been more of a nightmare than anything else. And they've gone from poor decision to bad decision to worse decision every single time. And with the hiring of Sunshine Sachs, I couldn't help but think, and Harry going back to the UK more or wanting to, can't help but think, if the two of them had a time machine and knowing what they know now, could have gone back to 2016, would they have made some different decisions? I can't help but wonder if the answer there is yes. Now, of course, this is just speculative, and they love their children, I'm sure.
And according to analysts Bauer consulted, wealthy couples sometimes reorganize investments or accounts in ways that separate financial interests over time. Bauer even spoke with financial specialists who told him the pattern he's describing can resemble asset protection strategies sometimes seen before high-profile separations. It doesn't prove anything on its own, they say, but the structure of the moves certainly caught attention. Several projects also stand out in Bauer's timeline. The American Riviera Orchard trademark filings appear connected directly to Meghan's name. Her podcast partnership with Lemonada Media also places her in the central role of that project. And earlier creative work, like the children's book, The Bench, was another example of a project closely associated with her personal brand. For Bauer, the key turning point appears around 2022. That's the period he identifies as the moment when Meghan's focus shifted more strongly toward independent ventures and personal brand development. According to his interpretation, that's when the business strategy began leaning less toward joint projects and more toward solo leadership roles. Bauer also connects that timeline to the amended prenup clause he believes exists. In his view, that legal update could provide a framework that defines how brand ownership, intellectual property, and shared ventures would be handled if the relationship ever faced serious changes. His prediction has also sparked debate. Bauer has suggested that if any legal separation were ever to occur, it could theoretically unfold within a matter of months once formal filings begin.
To a certain extent, they love each other, but we have a couple who has had a really unnecessarily difficult existence. And that's not the fault of the media. That is not the fault of his family. That's been their fault. Everything that has happened to them has been broadly their fault. And they can't seem to help recognize that. And so what they're doing, though, as things go sort of off the rail, is that they're regressing to, let's say, an earlier stage in life.
Under California law, divorce proceedings themselves require a minimum 6-month process after filing before they can be finalized. If such a situation ever happened, legal mechanisms would begin immediately. Courts would review assets, property arrangements, and business ownership connected to the couple's ventures. Questions about brand rights, media projects, and shared investments would all become part of that legal process. For now, these ideas remain part of Bauer's analysis and interpretation of public information, business filings, and the sources he says he consulted during his investigation. Then there's the issue everyone immediately thinks about in a situation like this: custody. Tom Bauer points out that California family courts usually focus on one main priority: stability for the children. Judges often look closely at which parent has handled most of the day-to-day caregiving. School routines, home life, and daily presence all matter in those decisions. Bauer argues that if a court ever had to examine the situation, the parent shown to have been the most consistently present could have an advantage. In his analysis, he suggests Meghan's role at home might become a key factor if custody arrangements were ever debated. Of course, those outcomes always depend on many legal factors and court decisions. But the question that keeps people talking is this: does Harry even realize what could be unfolding? Tom Bauer's view makes the situation sound even more dramatic. He believes Harry may feel that something isn't quite right, but might not fully understand the legal and financial details behind the scenes. Some observers have pointed to Harry's recent public appearances, including tense moments during court hearings in London connected to his legal battles with the press.
The insider revealed Meghan has made it clear that if and when they do split, she would demand a hefty settlement and to keep her royal title. She won't go anywhere unless it's with a title, property, and a huge sack of money. Meghan will make a deal to protect herself. Wow. Tasha is with me now.
Yeah.
This is astonishing, but remember, it comes just weeks after that Vanity Fair bombshell that Meghan is already shopping the post-divorce book to publishers.
Cameras captured emotional exchanges, visible frustration, and deeply personal comments about how media coverage has affected his life and family. For Bauer, those moments suggest someone under intense pressure. Sources quoted in his reporting say Harry has felt increasingly isolated while dealing with ongoing lawsuits and public scrutiny. His legal advisors have reportedly warned about the financial risks tied to continuing those cases. Yet Bauer claims Meghan supported pushing forward with the fight. And that leads to the question Bauer raises in his analysis: why continue costly legal battles that could drain millions? His theory suggests a much bigger strategy could already be in motion. Bauer's final conclusion is blunt. He believes the key moment may have happened years ago, when Harry signed an amended agreement that included the now famous Page 14, Clause 7. In Bauer's interpretation, that clause could shape how assets, brand ownership, and business ventures would be handled if the marriage ever faced a legal split. If his theory is correct, Meghan could walk away with strong control over the brand and several business ventures built during their time together. Bauer argues that the amendment Harry signed might not have been about protecting the marriage at all, but about preparing for every possible outcome. And that's the twist that has people debating everywhere. So now the big question is yours. Do you think this was a careful long-term strategy step by step? Or is Tom Bauer simply connecting dots that don't actually lead anywhere? The debate is heating up fast, and everyone seems to have a different take on it. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who follows royal stories. And don't forget to drop your thoughts down in the comments below.